Verse 9, for I was alive without the law once. Paul's talking to his past. I was alive without the law once, but when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died. What on earth is going on here? In the book of Nehemiah, chapter 8, when they gather everybody together to talk to them and read out of the book of the law and read out of it distinctly and cause people to understand the meaning, it says they gathered men, women, and you would think men, women, and children. But no, it says men, women, and those that could understand. Okay. Um, in other words, small children can't understand. Maybe old folks who are senile can't understand. And maybe there are people who are remedial or impaired cognitively who cannot understand what they call God's special children sometimes. So we're talking about people who can understand what that would mean. And I don't want to get into this whole idea of age of accountability. That's not what I'm trying to get to. But something like that where we have to realize that before somebody can understand the law, they don't have the law. And that's these passages here. Because the law worketh wrath, for where no law is, there is no transgression. Okay? For until the law, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no law. Okay? In other words, until the rules tell the 2-year-old to stop screaming, he doesn't know that he's supposed to stop screaming. And it's interesting to me in Romans 2:14 that even the Gentiles which have not the law, speaking of the law of Moses, they do by nature the things contained in the law. Now what we have today is a bunch of people running around talking about having a sin nature. Well, the phrase sin nature is not in the Bible. But when it talks about the nature of the Gentiles which don't have the law, it says they do the things contained in the law. Does not sound like total depravity to me. These having not the law are a law unto themselves. So I just wanted to make that salient to you. Now, John, I'm going to have to make this bigger because I have to compare something for you. So I'm going to make this bigger, and I had to put this all on one slide. In Romans 7:14 and 15, we see that Paul is doing all these things that he doesn't want to do. We've already covered this. It's already very clear. We know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. For that which I do, I allow not. That which I would, that I do. That which I hate, that I do. That kind of thing. So we already covered that. What does John say about that? Look how John words it. If we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. This is 1 John 1:8 and 10. If we say that we have not sinned, we make him a liar, and his word is not in us. Paul and John are both very clearly admitting that sin is present with us, and we would be lying if we said we had no sin. But look what he says next. In Romans 7:17, he says, now then it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Romans 7:20. Now, if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. So what does John say about this? He says that he that committeth sin is of the devil. Well, is it Paul doing it? He says it's no more I that do it. He that committeth sin is of the devil, for the devil sinneth from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. Very interesting. Next thing, whosoever is born of God doth not commit sin. What's going on here? He just said up here, if we have not sinned, if we say that we have not sinned, we make him a liar and his word is not in us. If we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves. But then down here he says, whosoever is born of God doth not commit sin. Why? For his seed remaineth in him, and he cannot sin because he is born of God. Paul says it this way. It is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Can Paul sin? Well, you're going to see somebody in that body commit sins. But can he sin. According to John, he can't. And according to Paul, it's no more him doing it. You understand the difference there? Now look what John goes on to say next. He says, in this the children of God are manifest and the children of the devil. Now here's the qualifier. How do we know whether or not somebody is born of God? Whosoever doth not righteousness is not of God. Now whenever you read that before, I'll bet you were thinking of other people, weren't you? You were thinking of other people instead of the dividing line between good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. Whoever is committing the sin that you commit is not of God. Are you tracking with me? Are you following me? Are you with me? In this the children of God is manifest, and the children of the devil. Whosoever doth not righteousness is not of God. He that loveth not his brother, neither he that loveth not his brother. So what's the test here? Doing righteousness and loving your brother. For this is the message that ye have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. So here we have a love going on as the indicator of that which is born of God. And we have, whosoever doth not righteousness is not of God. Who doth not righteousness? Well, it's no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me, according to Paul. And then he talks about neither he that loveth not his brother. So love is the key factor of someone who you might say is awakened. You say, what do you mean awakened, Kevin? Are you some kind of Eastern person? No, I'm just reading my Bible. Wherefore he saith, awake thou that sleepest, arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. If you're awakened to what you might call second-tier consciousness, or second half of life wisdom, or what Fowler would put stages, around 5 or so in Fowler's model, something like that. The key sign of that is an expanding love. It's an expanding and growing love that continues to grow and expand. Now, how does Paul say the same thing? Okay, now this is later on, but Paul says something very similar. He connects all this to love. He says, owe no man anything but to love one another. This is Romans 13, same book. But to love one another, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. Love is the sign. What did he just get through saying in Romans chapter 12? He said, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Well, as you are transformed, and as you renew that mind, guess what? You're going to fulfill the law through love, not through ethical, moral rule keeping. Okay? For this thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet. If there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. If you love somebody, you're not going to do those things. You're not going to steal their stuff. You're not going to kill them. You're not going to lie about them. You're not going to covet their stuff if you love them. So both of these fools, just kidding. That's the way me and Paula talk about people sometimes. Both of these apostles here talk about the relationship with sin and the impossibility of the true self to be the one doing the sinning, and how the indicator of being in the true self is love. I think Paul also says in Colossians that charity is the bond of perfection. And not perfection like sinlessness, but perfection like fully mature, fully wise.